If I were to ask you to speak right now with no prep time, could you do it? If there was a presentation right across the hall from wherever you're staying at a hotel right now, and their speaker canceled and you had to get up and deliver, could you do it? In other words, can you speak on command? My friend, this video is all about teaching you how to develop what's called extemporaneous or impromptu speaking skills. The reason why this is so vitally important is because statistics let us know that business leaders agree that having strong impromptu speaking skills, or your ability to what's called think on your feet, is an advantage in business that business leaders feel 85% of their top salespeople, if they have that skill, they're gonna be successful. However, they feel that only 17% of their sales team actually have the ability to think on their feet and be impromptu with your delivery. Now, the reason why this is so important from a neuroscience perspective is because most of us are terrified of the notion of delivering impromptu because there's no prep time. So this is the reason why we have to learn how to practice. And I wanna take you back to my 9th grade year in high school. In the 9th grade, my mom did something really amazing. She gave me a gift. She gave me a series of quote books, and she said, here's some quote books. She didn't give me the regular books, the regular like novels and like, you know, fiction, nonfiction. She bought me quote books because she knew that I loved short, powerful phrases. And so what I would do is I would walk up to the school bus every morning with my quote book, and I would read a quote, and then I would just talk for a minute or two as to what I thought that quote meant. Do you know what that habit developed within me? It developed within me the ability to deliver extemporaneously. In other words, it allowed me to take one concept and draw 4 and 5 other concepts from it. The reason why this is so important, my friend, is because I didn't know way back when I was in the 9th grade that having short, powerful, punchy content would help me go viral in 2025 because of the advent of social media and now with the advent of artificial intelligence. My friend, I'm here to tell you, having strong, impromptu, off-the-cuff, extemporaneous presentation skills is gonna be one of your greatest assets in business. And the reason why it's a strong asset is because it teaches you your ability to think quickly on your feet and to come up with solutions quickly to existing problems. So let me give you a couple of keys that you can utilize if you want to sometimes go off script, right? Sometimes it's good to kind of go off road, right? Sometimes it's good to kind of go against the grain. It's one thing to prepare, and I want you to be masterfully prepared for your presentation. But please remember this, your audience wants your presence, not your PowerPoint. Woo! Write that down, family. Write it down in the comments. Your audience wants your presence in front of them, not necessarily just your PowerPoint slides. So it's not just always about finishing your slides, because there might be something that happens in the middle of your presentation and you need to kind of take a detour and go in a completely different direction. The way I like to describe it is this: have you ever gotten a really good massage for? Fire off in the comments below if you've ever gotten a really good massage. Say, I got a great massage one time, right? The reason why that's important is this. Let me ask you a question. When you went to get that massage, you probably told, I'm sore right now, right? So I need to get me a good massage. But if a masseuse was to come to my house right now, I'd say, okay, hit my calves because my calves are a little bit sore, hit my quads a little bit, hit my shoulders. Right now, that's what I'm telling the masseuse that I want. But it's the masseuse's job to get me on the table and start feeling out where my muscle tension really is. And my muscle tension might be in my lower back. I didn't tell the masseuse that that's what I wanted to be massaged or to be focused on. But it's her job, or it's his job, to know where those spots are and work through the knots so that way all the areas of my body feel 10 times better. That's our job as communicators, as speakers, as influencers. It's our ability to be prepared with our deck and our slides and what we want to cover, yes. But sometimes you gotta know when to go off road. Sometimes you gotta know when to pull it aside. Sometimes you gotta know when, like they say in football, to call an audible. An audible is when the quarterback had one play in mind and then he sees how the defenses lines up, calls an audible and changes the play mid-sentence, mid-conversation, middle of the game, middle of the hike. Does that make sense? Sometimes as we're delivering presentations, we gotta be willing to pull an aside, pull an audible, go in a different direction to create a greater impact for our audience. Does that make sense? Awesome. So let me give you a couple things that I want you to do. I'm gonna give you 4 quick things I want you to do, and I'm gonna give you a gangster bonus as to the benefit of going off script with your presentation. First thing I want you to do if you want to develop extemporaneous or impromptu presentation skills is do what I did. Start with quotes. Find a good quote book or just Google 20 inspirational quotes in your industry or 50 inspirational quotes in your industry or your niche or your subject matter, right? Find those quotes online, and then here's what I want you to do. I want you to practice reading the quote and then tape yourself. I want you to like literally time yourself. Say, okay, I'm gonna talk about this quote for a full 2 minutes. So Wayne Gretzky has a great quote. He says, "You will miss 100% of the shots you never take in life." That's a great quote by Wayne Gretzky. You will miss with mathematical exactitude, you will miss 100% of the shots you never take in life. So if that's the quote, and I asked you to speak on that quote for 2 minutes, what would you say? See, that's developing impromptu, extemporaneous, and off-the-cuff presentation skills. This is why see, improv is so powerful because the more we develop our ability, and I'm not saying you got to be a comedian, but developing improvisation skills is so powerful because it unlocks creative elements in the brain. Does that make sense? It allows our brain to become 10 times more creative. We develop more and better neural pathways and neural networks in our brain when we release our creativity. And sometimes going off script allows you to release your creativity to do something new and different and unique. So the first thing I want you to do if you want to develop extemporaneous presentation skills, find inspirational quotes, like your top 20 or 30 quotes that inspire you. And I want you to read the quote, and then I want you to grab your phone and I want you to talk about the quote for 2 minutes and record yourself doing that and see if you like it. That's how you would expound on that concept. Does that make sense? So step number 1, start with quotes. Number 2, watch media interviews and then continue the conversation. Here's what I want you to do. Whatever your favorite news outlet is that you tend to watch on a regular basis, whether you watch it online or you watch it on television or cable or however you stream it, whatever. Next time you're watching a great interview and they're interviewing a subject matter expert in the field that is in your industry, here's what I want you to do. As you're watching the interview, I want you to pause the interview and I want you to put yourself in the interview as if you're actually one of the people being interviewed. And I want you to pause the interview and say, okay, cool. Now I'm gonna act like Al Roker just asked me that question. I'm gonna act like Craig Melvin from the Today Show just asked me that question. Does that make sense? I'm gonna act like Whoopi Goldberg just asked me that question. You feel what I'm saying? So put yourself in the shoes of the person that's the guest on the show and then answer the question or deliver the same way you would if you were actually on that show. See, you gotta see it before you see it or you'll never see it. I'm gonna say that again. You gotta see yourself there. You gotta see it before you see it or you'll never see it, my friend. So see yourself in a media situation. Let me give you a perfect example. So because I talk on personal development and peak performance and all these other things, right? I study a lot of Tony Robbins interviews. So when Tony Robbins is being interviewed on television, I like to watch those interviews. And then I say, okay, cool. If I was sitting right next to Tony Robbins, because I'm also a peak performance expert, I'm not at his level, I never will be, right? I'm not saying that negatively. What I mean by that is I'm not meant to be Tony Robbins. There's only one Tony Robbins. You're not meant to be Dr. Delatorro. There's only one Dr. Delatorro. My point is, if I'm sitting right next to Tony and I'm envisioning that I'm sitting right next to Tony Robbins and let's just say Larry King asked him a question and then he asked me a question, I need to be able to articulate at the same level of quality and excellence that he did. So it helps you develop an extemporaneous and impromptu presentation style when you put yourself in the position of a subject matter expert being interviewed on television. You feel me? That's the second thing I want you to do to start to develop that extemporaneous skill. The third thing I want you to do is I want you to find some of your favorite personal development or business books or spiritual books. And I want you to find a passage in that book that you enjoy reading, read it, and then I want you to stop and speak on what you just read. So like, let's say you're reading a book that's empowering. Let's say you're reading a book called Oversubscribed, right? Which talks about how to set your business and your brand up in such a way where you have customers and you have a waiting list for all your products and services, right? So let's say I'm reading something in that book and it's talking about how to become irresistible. I might read a paragraph about that and then stop reading and say, cool. In this book, Daniel Priestley talks about the importance of becoming irresistible. One of the things that I firmly believe that's allowed me to be irresistible over the last 23 years is ABC 1, 2, 3. See, read, stop, and then speak on what you read. Just expound on what it is that you heard or what it is that you read expound on it for 2 or 3 minutes and see how you did. See how you like it. Taking an initial concept and then adding to it, because learning is nothing but the process of attaching new information to old information. Does that make sense, family? So that's the third way I want you to start developing your extemporaneous and your impromptu presentation skills, is to read something, stop, and then speak on what you read. Like literally represent it, re-deliver it in your way, in your style, with your life experience, with your background, with your expertise, with your knowledge, with your pedigree. Does that make sense? And then the fourth thing I need you to do is, and I'm not a paid sponsor or affiliate, but I would highly encourage you, if you really want to develop extemporaneous and impromptu public speaking and presentation skills, join your local chapter of a good Toastmasters club. You can go to toastmasters.org and you can find a Toastmasters club in your city, in your town, in your area that meets on a weekly basis. And they have something called Table Topics. And Table Topics is a chance for you to practice impromptu, extemporaneous presentation skills when it doesn't count, when it's not the client presentation, when it's not the money-making presentation. And one of the things that I always encourage speakers to do is to practice when it doesn't count. Does that make sense? Don't practice during a performance, practice when it doesn't count. So find yourself a really good Toastmasters club and really challenge yourself in the Table Topics portion of your Toastmasters meetings to deliver with more extemporaneous, impromptu excellence. Does that make sense? And my bonus tip for you in this video is don't be afraid to go off script. Don't be afraid to lean into your creativity. And don't be afraid to scrap what you previously planned because you get a divine download. One of the greatest speeches in human history that literally, in my humble opinion, changed the course of human history, especially in the United States of America, was a powerful presentation given by an amazing man that we now call the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He gave a famous speech called, "I Have a Dream." Now, we typically only hear about this I Have a Dream speech in the month of February, which is during Black History Month, right? Or of course, we also hear about the presentation on his birthday. But here's what's interesting. The famous I Have a Dream speech actually was an experiment in impromptu speaking and extemporaneous delivery. Well, Dr. Delatorro, what do you mean by that? So here's the truth. We feel like Dr. King crafted a presentation called I Have a Dream from the beginning to end. And that's what he delivered during the March on Washington. But that's not what happened. Dr. King had a previously set aside presentation that he was ready to deliver. As he was delivering the presentation, y'all, this is true, so you can fact check this. As he was delivering his presentation, his mentor was 3 or 4 rows behind him. His mentor was a woman by the name of Mahalia Jackson. Mahalia Jackson had traveled all over the country with Dr. King because she would sing before he would preach and minister in assemblies, rallies, and churches all over the United States as he was rallying for civil rights. Does that make sense? So she'd heard him speak many times. She was surveying the audience and she was looking at him. He was giving a presentation. He was presenting his slides, right? They didn't have PowerPoint back then, but let's just assume for the sake of conversation, he was presenting his slides like he would normally do. She looked at the audience and she looked at him. And then she yelled this in the middle of his presentation, "Marty, tell him about the dream. Marty, tell him about the dream." She yelled that in the middle of him giving his presentation, family. And when she yelled Marty, not Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., she didn't call him that. Because why? She was his mentor. His mentor yells to him, "Marty, tell him about the dream." He closed his previously prepared presentation and extemporaneously went into, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have a dream deeply rooted in the American dream." And the rest of that presentation that now goes down in human history as one of the greatest speeches of all time that shifted racism and discrimination in America and around the world, my friend, that one part of that presentation, the one that he's most known for, he didn't prepare for it. It was impromptu. It was extemporaneous. And guess what? It took the nudging of a mentor to get him to go off script. And because he went off script, he changed human history. My friend, what am I trying to tell you? What I'm trying to tell you is to embrace the creativity and the opportunity to develop powerful and profound extemporaneous and impromptu public speaking skills, presentation skills, persuasion skills, and communication skills. If you are not afraid to go off script and to go off road, you, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., can change history. Fire off in the comments and let me know that you have a dream, because we all have a dream. And sometimes that dream is gonna cause you to go off script. Sometimes that dream is gonna cause you to go off road. Don't be afraid to venture into uncharted territory, because you'll never discover new oceans until you have the courage to lose sight of the shore. Can't wait to see you in the next video.